Hi, I'm Bob Sorsel. I'm going to talk about the idea of mobility freedom and what it means to me. Let's discuss. I find it so discouraging whenever I visit suburban places like my hometown in Northern Virginia, and the standard way to get anywhere is to get in a car and drive 20 to 30 minutes. Need groceries? Get in the car. Going for lunch? Get in the car. Want to visit someone? Get in the car. Every time. And I hate that I usually have to do it because other options take far longer and aren't as useful. There's a distinct lack of what I call mobility freedom. What is mobility freedom? It's the freedom one has to be able to get from one place to another using a variety of options. A person can have more freedom if they have good options for traveling, and they have less freedom if they have bad and/or less options. Quick note, I'm not focusing on the human rights concept of freedom of movement here, though it is certainly related. Mobility freedom includes having accessible and safe routes. It's one thing to be able to map a route to and from your destination, but it needs to be practical to actually use the route. Making road crossings, turning at intersections, finding where you're going, accessing transit stops, they're all important. And if you're not in a car, you probably need a sidewalk, pathway, bike lane, or even shoulder to use. And hopefully it's properly maintained so it's not full of overgrowth, debris, snow, or illegally parked cars. Time of day is a factor in mobility freedom. You may be able to easily get home from your office in the early afternoon on a Sunday, but what about weekday rush hour? Or what if you don't get off from your job until 3 in the morning? Are there transit lines even running at that time? Terrain can have an effect on mobility freedom. Living in an area with hilly terrain adds physical challenges if one is to travel without using a car. For people traveling with their own personal device, whether it be a car, bicycle, scooter, wheelchair, whatever, finding a safe parking spot, bike rack, etc. at the endpoint can affect their mobility freedom. There's a historical element to the limitation of mobility freedom. People that have been priced out of cities due to exclusionary zoning, an extension of redlining and other racist policies, and thus live farther away from job opportunities, have suffered greatly from being forced to pay for the expenses of owning and maintaining a car. People who rely solely on cars to travel do not have mobility freedom if they don't have a backup. What do they do if their car breaks down? Can they take the bus? Get a ride from a neighbor or friend? Afford to pay for an Uber or taxi? There's a greater awareness of mobility freedom from people who live with disabilities because they are more affected by it. Many people with disabilities, especially those who are unable to drive, have to deal with the challenges that centering a society based around cars creates. Their mobility freedom can be severely limited by having to rely on friends or family for rides, paratransit services that are more expensive than regular public transit, rideshare services that can get expensive fast, and more. Infrastructure like curb ramps, seating at bus stops, crosswalk signals that feature sounds, wheelchair ramps, or elevators, they all disproportionately affect the mobility freedom of people living with disabilities. Another group is residents of suburbs and exurbs. I talk with people who live in places where driving is the only reasonable way to get to most places. While they enjoy having larger private spaces like houses and yards in quieter neighborhoods, they wish they had more travel options and didn't have to be so far away from schools, jobs, friends, and more. Their ability to travel is entirely dependent on local traffic. They too suffer from a lack of mobility freedom. And car companies don't make this any better. They do so much advertising to create an idea of freedom around cars with visions of open landscapes and highways without traffic. But expensive costs like gas, insurance, maintenance, parking permits, and more all severely limit that freedom. What do I want? I want people to have good and reliable options. Maybe a car works best for someone in certain situations, but they should be able to choose alternatives if they're feeling sick, tired, or are otherwise unable to responsibly operate a motor vehicle. Personally, I made the choice to live where I could bike and take transit to get around because I did not want to have to deal with the daily driving commute. Sitting in traffic congestion, dealing with road rage, not being able to tune out and relax because you're in control of tons of metal, it all sounds so depressing. I bike and take transit to get to most places because I enjoy doing that. Riding a bike is calming for me and gives me time to think, especially after a stressful day. And taking transit, I get to relax, zone out, and stare out the window or catch a nap. I have a driver's license and enjoy driving when I do because it's usually for some special occasion like visiting family, going on a hiking adventure with friends, or traveling somewhere fun. Sometimes I will rent a van if I need to transport larger objects like furniture. The important thing is, I have a choice of how I can travel, and I want everyone to have that choice too. What does mobility freedom mean to you? I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. This is a new style of video for me, so I will make adjustments as I do more of these, but I hope you found it interesting. If you want to see more of my content, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.